from the Heart.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Horror from the Heart, episode 25. My name's Josh, and we're just going to go ahead and kick it right off and kind of continue on with what we've been kind of talking about for past couple episodes. So, not particularly the witches or the torture devices that are out there or anything like that, but just torture in general. We're going to continue on with this theme just for one more go. But this time, we're going to go ahead and go with torture stuff that you see in some of the movies that are out there. Now, I did mention that there was a few different movies out there that do have torture stuff in there. And for whatever reason, we get like kind of real squeamish when we see it. But there's just that other part of us that says, I can't take my eyes off of this. It's just one of those weird things because, whether it's one of those ones that you're thinking to yourself, I would love to be able to do this to somebody that I don't like. Not really, but you kind of have that kind of feeling sometimes. I mean, I think all of us kind of get that every once in a while. Or it's just one of those ones where it's just like that whole, how can somebody be so fucking horrific? It's one or the other, but it's just something that we end up getting into. So a few of the movies that we do know that are out there that do have the torture stuff in there are like the Saw movies. Now, and with those ones, it's kind of one of those things where you have those and it's torture because the devices. I mean, that's why most people go see these Saw movies. I mean, hell, there's supposed to be another one supposed to be coming out at some point. I don't know when. I haven't heard too much about it, but I mean, hell, there was the Spiral spinoff that they did on that one. But with that, the Saw movies, prime example of torture stuff. You have a reverse bear trap, barbed wire fence stuff that you got to go through, all sorts of different things that these people are subjected to. And then you also have the horror movie Hostel, with the Hostel movie part 1, part 2, and part 3, if I remember right. With those ones, that was one of those ones that kicked off the whole idea of putting torture as a forefront in movies. Now, there was movies, out there that do have torture in them before Hostel came out, but Hostel was the one that kind of really put that precedence out there and created the version of, or genre actually, not version, but genre of horror movies called torture porn. And a lot of people get into a lot of the torture porn movies. And then there's a lot of people who are completely turned off by it. And most of the people who get into the torture porn style of movies are more there because of the gore and everything that happens in those movies. But Hostel's one of those ones. You're talking about people that were literally kidnapped and tortured for long sessions of time. And people were just so engrossed by it. And then you have the Saw movies that came out after that continued that kind of trope, except it was in a different setting with different stories, of course, but it kind of just pushed those limits of stuff. Now, there were movies, as I said, there were movies that were made before these movies came out that did have torture elements to them. So if you go back and you look at something like I Spit on Your Grave, and I'm not talking about the remake, I'm talking about the original I Spit on Your Grave. I mean, there were some absolutely torturous things that happened in that, and the way the girl got her revenge in that was just absolutely, oh my god, if you haven't seen the movie, you gotta go see this movie, or you gotta find it someplace to be able to watch this movie. Whether it is the remake or the original, I would say watch both, because they're actually both really damn good. But then you also have the Last House on the Left movie. Now, Last House on the Left was the actual first movie that Wes Craven worked on, and that was way back in the day. I remember my mom telling me about that movie. I was like, oh, you got to see this, because I was super into horror even as a kid. And it was probably a movie that I really shouldn't have seen when I was that age, but I did. I think I found it at a flea market or something like that, was finally able to get it on a VHS. Now, for me, the older version, the Wes Craven version, doesn't pull it off as well. I mean, there is tons of torture stuff that happens to the main characters that are in there, as well as to the villains that are in the movie as well. But just it's cheesy in its own little way nowadays compared to how it was way back in the day. The remake was actually pretty damn good itself too. So I would say, again, that's one of those ones where it's go to either one and check it out, and you'll definitely see some stuff. And then one of the most prolific ones that we know, that almost everybody knows that's out there, is Misery. I mean, everybody freaking knows Misery. Stephen King's Misery. I mean, the guy was literally tied to a bed for a good while and had his ankles busted. If that's not torture, I don't know what is torture. And then all the psychological torture that goes on within that movie, because he's literally captive, getting told to rewrite a book that he already writ, because a fanatic fan was like, I didn't like the way that ended. It's kind of creepy in that, like, really, really bad way. But there's tons of movies that are out there that have all sorts of different little torture elements that are out there. And there's some the ones that you may not have even heard. If you've never seen the movie Martyrs, Martyrs is one of those ones where it's like, that movie is literally about torture and subversion into really just kind of like some depraved kind of crap, because it was a cult that came out there. Then you have ones that I don't know if you would actually consider it a horror movie, but just simply because of how it was, I would sit back and say it kind of falls in that realm, and that'd be like the movie Hard Candy. It has Elliot Page in there when Elliot Page was still Ellen Page at the time. Just to put that out there. It had Elliot Page in there, and Elliot ended up kidnapping this guy who they assumed at the time was a sexual predator. Not that there was anything that was out there that actually said, hey, this guy is a sexual predator. In the movie, you have to watch it. You'll get what I mean. But even in that one, it was one of those ones where it's like I would consider in the realm of horror simply for all the torture elements that happen with that. Or then you watch something like Audition. And Audition is a Japanese film, and if you haven't seen that one's definitely worth checking out too. But remember, you gotta have a strong stomach when watching some of these movies, because Audition is definitely one of those ones where you have to have a strong stomach for that. I mean, this chick literally kidnaps this dude and tortures the hell out of him, and just a lot of the different methods that are out there that happen that she does are just downright, oh my god, that's nasty. Oh my god, I had to sit there and stop that movie a couple times, because I was just like, holy shit, this, oh man, made my stomach churn. And I have a pretty strong stomach, and horror doesn't really affect me all that much. I love watching horror, but it doesn't scare me or freak me out or anything like that. But that was definitely one of those ones where I was like, oh no, 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 no. I gotta stop for a second. And then you have other movies that are like The Human Centipede. Now, I don't know if anybody considers that in that torture kind of way, but it technically really is. I mean, you have people literally sewn ass to mouth to make a giant human centipede. That is just depraved kind of torture, and just the idea of having that kind of stuff go on. Because there's a lot of movies out there that do the actual physical torture stuff, and then have the other ones that are out there that do like the mental kind of torture to certain people. And it's not only one of those things where it's mentally torturing, whatever, actor that's doing the part and stuff like that, the character that they're playing. But I think it kind of plays into actually kind of torturing the audience out there too with some of the stuff that's out there. And then you have other movies out there like Pet. I don't know if anybody, has really gotten a chance to check that one out, because, I mean, unless you're super, super into horror, and some of these movies you're just not going to know about. But Pet is also one of those ones where it's like, I like that one. It was good. It was really good, but it was really depraved in a lot of different ways too. I mean, this chick was kidnapped and pretty much made to be a pet, but it was definitely in that realm of like, holy crap type of stuff. But with that, it's kind of a little bit of a shorter episode this time. I'm kind of curious if you guys get into the torture porn type of stuff. Those kind of movies that are out there. If you guys know any other super depraved ones that are out there that I haven't mentioned in this, or if it's just one of those ones where it's like, no, that's a genre that needs to go, and we need to stick to more traditional horror values and that kind of mess that we love. So with that, though, thank you very much if you've made it all the way to the end of the, my audio right here. If you're hearing me say this, you've gotten to the end of it pretty much. I'm going to be putting out my daily horror facts out there on TikTok. I'll be uploading them to YouTube, as I said. I'm trying to get those out there on a daily basis onto YouTube, but I'm at least doing them on TikTok, and it's at Horror from the Heart on there. If you want to check those out, I do a daily horror fact, whether it's, and again, just like anything that I've been saying here, anything from real life to the horror movies to the comics, anything that I can find. I loved being able to do horror facts, especially whenever it's stuff that people, they don't know about, and you learn something new. It's really kind of neat. So, thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.